Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Your Everyday Strength podcast. My name is Josh Sternberg, and if you are just joining us for the very first time, welcome. Thank you very much for being here today. If you are returning, again, welcome back. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Let's fucking go. All right, so before we rip into today's topic, I actually had something brought to my attention this morning that I hadn't really acknowledged. And I'm someone who, I've spoken about it on here before, and that's celebrating your wins. Now, what I didn't realize is last week, episode 26 with Kira, if you haven't heard it, go back and listen. It's a great fucking episode, really good discussion. But I realized that actually meant I'd been doing this for 6 months. Now, I've spoken about it before. I have missed a couple of weeks, so it hasn't, it's actually probably been a little bit longer than 6 months ago since I first started the podcast back in April. However, it's still been 6 months worth of episodes. Now, that's a pretty fucking cool achievement, given the fact that this time last year, if someone had said to me, hey, you're going to have a podcast next year, I probably would have laughed in their face and been like, fuck off, no, I won't. There's no way I'm going to have a podcast next year. But through life and the way it unfolds and everything, I have a podcast. And honestly, the fact that I have people still turning up every single week, listening in and chiming in and listening to me rant and rave and yap and whatever else and tuning into the guests and all of it, honestly, it's just fucking mind-blowing to me. It truly is. And I genuinely appreciate every single person who does take the time out of their week to listen to me talk. Anyone who's listened from episode 1 will know I've probably gotten a little bit better at talking consistently to a camera. It's so weird because I just fully fucked that up. But hey, sitting in my room or my spare bedroom by myself, talking to my phone for 40 to 60 minutes at a time, it can be weird. It's a fucking weird concept to think about. Now, if you can't imagine what it's like, I just want you to sit there for one minute, looking directly at your camera with nothing else around and just talk to it. Tell me that it isn't a little bit more difficult than you might think it is. And I just appreciate the fuck out of every single person. Anybody who's listened, anybody who's shared it, anybody who sent me a message, I genuinely appreciate you. 6 months in the grand scheme of things isn't a great deal, but I know that it's still building and growing and all of the rest of it. And I'm really fucking excited to continue to see where this will go long term. So it kind of fits today's topic, which is the power of routine, setting yourself up for success. I've spoken before about habits. I've spoken before about building momentum, generating momentum, how discipline is driven by building habits, which you stack and then you get confidence and all of the rest of it, right? So we know this by now, but I've never really dove too deep on the actual background information of it, a little bit more practical information about how you can actually utilize this stuff and implement it into your day-to-day life, how it's changed my life and all the rest of it. So I've spoken before about, the myth of motivation. Motivation, waiting to feel ready is what keeps people stuck. You kind of just have to do the fucking thing, and motivation comes as a byproduct. Now, within that, it's not going to happen straight away, but it does come as a result of you continually showing up and doing the thing that you say you're going to do. And that stems from habits. It stems from discipline, routine, structure, all the rest of it, right? And I see it time and time again. People will go through these waves of motivation, especially as a coach. I'll see people, they're motivated as fuck. They'll stick to everything for 2 weeks. Then they're off the bandwagon again. And then they come back and they're like, yeah, I'm in. And then they're off again. And then they're on and then they're off. And it continues to happen. And they're like, oh, I haven't really gotten the results I'm looking for. And it's like, well, let's have a little look about this. Let's think a little bit more, realistically. Let's take some self-accountability. Accountability, self-accountability, extreme ownership. Own your shit. You are responsible for the things that you do or don't do, for that matter. And I've not really watched Star Wars. Don't come at me if you listen to this and you hear that. But one quote of Yoda's that I do actually like, I'm pretty sure it's Yoda, is do or do not, there is no try. Too often people will say, oh yeah, I'm going to really try to get on top of things this week. It's like, no, you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. There's no trying within here. Oh, I tried to stick to my food. Did you actually try, or did you have the intention that you're going to do it? Then you decided to not do it and you were just like, oh, well, fuck, at least I tried. You didn't. Let's be realistic. It's enough of that anyway. But your habits, basically at the end of the day, your habits define your identity and your identity drives your habits. How you show up doing one thing is how you will show up doing everything. The habits that you build in one area of life, and I've spoken about this before, right? The habit of training and doing hard shit in the gym, from strength training or powerlifting or any form of training at all, carries over into other aspects of life. When you realize that you can do hard shit, you can get stronger, you can get bigger, you can get leaner, you can do all of these things, that confidence bleeds into the other aspects. You feel more confident in your day-to-day, you feel more confident in your job, and all of these sort of things start to arise as a byproduct of you just showing up to the gym. Now, showing up to the gym in itself is a massive sort of habit stacking thing that you can actually utilize, which we'll get into shortly. Now, like routine and structure, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in right now. I wouldn't have this fucking podcast if I didn't have some form of routine and structure. If I didn't have a plan in place at the start of every week, at the start of every single day. These are the things that have driven me to get to the position that I'm in right now. There's no way I would be able to facilitate all of the different hats that I'm having to wear at the moment if I wasn't structured, if I didn't have routine, if I didn't have consistency, if I didn't show up when I knew I needed to, if I didn't just get the fucking work done. Habits. We all hear it, But what are they? Like, what is a habit? It's essentially an automated behavior that's built through repetition and reward. There is a loop that arises from within the brain. Now, it is a cue, routine, reward. Basically, habits are a form of conditioning. Now, if you haven't heard about conditioning before in a psychological perspective, it is very different from conditioning in the gym where you go and get on a ski erg or a rower and try and build up your aerobic capacity. Conditioning is essentially trying to create a new routine, structure, habits, all of these different things utilizing another method. Now, there's two really popular and common forms of conditioning. We have classical conditioning and we have operant conditioning. Classical conditioning, and I'm sure a lot of people have actually heard of this story before. Classical conditioning is essentially, it's an involuntary response from a previously neutral stimulus. The most common and well-known example of this is a study, or not really a study, but an experiment called Pavlov's dog. Now, if you haven't heard of Pavlov's dog, long story short, a scientist had a dog. This dog, every time it saw its food, would salivate. What he wanted to see was that if he could utilize another stimulus to drive the same response. In this example, he uses a bell. Now, when the dog heard the bell originally, it had no reaction. It didn't even fucking care about the bell whatsoever. However, over time, what he slowly started to do is he would ring the bell right before he would feed the dog. So every single day, the bell would ring, he would then feed the dog. The dog is salivating because of the food. However, slowly over time, he wanted to see if it would still work. So he prolonged how long he would, like the time with which he would feed the dog after ringing the bell. He would ring the bell and then he would push out the time that he was going to feed the dog. What eventually happened is he rung the bell without feeding the dog whatsoever, and the sound of the bell actually caused the dog to salivate. Now, what basically occurred is that, as mentioned, a previously neutral stimulus, the bell, has now caused a reaction from the dog from a previously sort of positive thing, right? So it had food, previously it would salivate. doesn't have food, but it's still salivating to the sound of the bell. And that is classical conditioning. Operant conditioning, however, is essentially a behavior it's a voluntary behavior. It's based on good or bad outcomes. If we think about being children, if you tell a child to not touch a hot stove, they're probably not going to listen. But as soon as a child touches a hot stove for the first time and they get a bad outcome, in their brain, they're probably not going to fucking do it again. That's a form of operant conditioning. There has been a bad outcome and they have now changed the behavior that they have performed to ensure that that doesn't happen again. On the flip side to that, you can have good. You can have good, like a reward-based system. So if we think about, again, we'll use dogs as an example just because it's a super easy one. When you reward a dog, they will generally then do the trick again. So if you're teaching a dog to sit, you will give them a treat. They sit, you give them the treat. They sit, you give them the treat. They sit, you give them the treat. They sit, you give them a treat. Now that dog has associated a good outcome with a learned behavior. Every single time you tell that dog to sit, he then expects to get a treat. It then becomes a new habit. It becomes something that that dog is able to do, and you don't even need to give them treats after that. They can just do the thing. Sometimes you might need to still give them treats long term. But likewise with human beings, if we do good things and we get positive feedback or we get a reward or we get something along those lines, then we're more likely to go and continue that habit or continue that thing again. With relation to, like, from a neuroscience perspective, we can think about it as like dopamine. So our body is rewarding us with dopamine, the feel-good hormone. We're like, oh, fuck yeah, this is great. I'm going to go and seek that more. If you got ADHD or you're a little bit neurospicy, we fucking seek dopamine all the time. That is why we have a tendency to exhibit more risky behaviors. It's why most people have a tendency to drive a little bit more erratically, or all of these certain things, right? Everything is linked essentially to our brain, our neurochemistry, and it wants the release of dopamine. With ADHD, it's something people actually struggle to create. DEXIs are a means of actually helping regulate this a little bit better, but we're not going to go too deep into that. The biggest thing is having a routine, structure, or system in place that allows you to exhibit good outcomes. If you continuously, you sleep through your alarm, some days you eat good food, some days you don't, and all of the other shit, and then all of a sudden you're not achieving your results, you're not really getting ahead in life, that is a bad outcome. You're probably not going to want to continue to exhibit that behavior. However, if you wake up on time every single day, if you follow the same routine and structure every single day, and good things come as a byproduct of this, you're probably going to continue to exhibit these habits every single day. For me, the biggest thing is my morning routine. Like, my morning routine is so fucking dialed in. It just sets the tone for the day every single day. Years and years and years and years ago, there was a really popular video going around on Facebook. It was basically an army general or a Marine or someone like that. And he was essentially talking about the first thing you should do every single day is make your bed. Now, it's not making your bed because it looks nice or whatever. It is to start every single morning with a win. The first thing that happens is you win that first task. That is when you can then continue to carry that momentum through with you into other aspects or other areas of your life. Something as to most people, something as meaningless as making the bed might seem minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but this can actually elicit a positive response from our brain, i.e. dopamine, which is then going to continue us wanting to seek that over the course of the whole day. And we're going to continue to follow this sort of path that we have started for ourselves. Our biggest aspect to this is creating structure, is creating routine. We can't expect to thrive in an environment that is chaotic. If every single day is completely different from morning to night, and parents, this is probably the case for you with children, I can't imagine that every single morning is the exact same. And I can't imagine what it's like to deal with kids who are just fucking erratic and doing whatever they want, and you're trying to create some form of routine or structure. So, I sympathize with you if you are a parent, and understand that, this may not be as easy as maybe I'm making it sound. However, there are still some things that you can actually do. And there's things that I've utilized in the past with clients who are parents that has actually helped them to set their days up to just be a little bit better. None of this stuff needs to take up much time. I'm not going to be one of those gurus that's like, you need to get up 90 minutes earlier and have lemon water and wash and dunk your face and read and meditate and X and Y and Z and all of this other shit. If you can do that and you want to do that, fucking oath, have at it by all means. I don't. The first thing I do every single morning, I get up, I go to the toilet, I weigh myself, put my contacts in so I can actually fucking see. I go out, I make my bed, I go straight downstairs, I put my coffee in my cup, I make my electrolytes to drink on the way to the beach, I put the fucking lead straight on Sammy, and we go out the door in the car on the way to the beach every single morning. This is the first thing we do every single day. That to me, that works. What you didn't hear within that is I haven't read, I haven't meditated, I haven't journaled, I haven't done any of those things within that time frame. Because for me, I want to reduce the barrier to entry and the barrier to resistance to get out and start my day as soon as I fucking can. Because I know for a fact that once I'm moving my body and the blood's flowing a little bit, caffeine hits the system, hydration kicks in. By the time I get home, then I'm ready to like cognitively switch on. I'm then ready to get my brain going, to get started with my day. That is when I will sit down and I'll run through that in a moment. But I will do my morning gratitude and my morning journaling, and I'll set up my breakfast and I will meditate and I will do all of these different things once I am ready to start my day. For me, it works really fucking well. And I structure my days every single day. The only day I do not have any distinguished structure is a Saturday. That to me is a day that I classify as a free day. I can do whatever the fuck I want on a Saturday, within reason, obviously. But for me, Sunday to Friday, every single day, every single time throughout that day is structured. I have my work blocks structured in advance, so I know exactly what I'm doing at those times. And I distinguish between like client messages and tech checks. I distinguish between social media content, check-ins, programming, all of it. I've got it all structured. Lunch, when I walk Sammy, when I'm meditating, when I do journaling, all of it, right? I have my day structured from morning to night, and I know exactly what I'm doing at any given moment. So that way in my brain, I already know. I'm like, hey, cool, this is exactly what I'm doing. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to overthink about it. I don't need to sit there and get all flustered because I'm like, oh, fuck, what am I doing today? I don't really know. I just know. And yes, I have a larger means to be able to do this. However, if you are somebody who works in a business, generally speaking, you're probably working the same hours. So you have the same amount of time every morning and the same amount of time every single night to be able to do the things you need to do. You can still create structure and routine around this. I know plenty of people who have structure and routine, who are very fucking busy, who work in companies much larger than mine, who work in businesses in much higher positions than I do, and they are still able to create habits, routine, consistency. And I can promise you right now that there is not a single one of them that doesn't believe that they have gotten to that position via doing so. Now, structure is freedom. It's not restriction. I'm not restricted, although it sounds very restricted. It's like you have to do X at Y and this at this time and this at this time. To me, that's freedom because I know, I'm like, okay, cool. I have an hour to get this task done. There's a principle that I will quickly search because I forget about it. Parkinson's law. There we go. That's the one I was trying to think of. Basically, what it means is you will take the time that you assign a task to do. Stay with me now. If you assign an hour to do a task, you will take an hour. If you assign 15 minutes, you'll figure out a way to get it done in 15 minutes. Our brain is inherently designed to fill the space. Now, what you'll find is if you just set, and this is for coaches potentially, if you set like a 5-hour block and you're like, I'm going to do social media, client work, X, Y, Z in this time, and it's just one big blanket, you're going to take that 5 hours every single time. And what you'll actually probably find is you may not even get all of it done because you'll procrastinate the fuck out of a lot of it. And you'll end up being like, oh, I've got no time to do anything because your time is just so fucking poorly planned. It's why I distinguish between like every single task, because I'm like, okay, cool, I have an hour. And then my only goal is to get that done as quick as I fucking can. Some days it's majority of the time, it's shorter than that time frame. Some days it takes a little bit longer, but it's fine because it'll all balance out given the fact that sometimes it does take a little bit less. With that, you kind of just need to start with an anchor point. As I mentioned, my biggest thing is I wake up at the exact same time every single day. Every day, Sunday to Friday. I will wake up at the exact same time every single day. At the moment, that is 4:20 a.m. I get up at 4:20. I am in the car, ready to go to the beach. I'm at the beach by 5 a.m. For me, it's structured. I know when I'm going to be there. I know how long the walk takes. I know how long the drive back normally takes, because it's the same traffic pretty much every single day. Blah, 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 blah. I know how long it is going to take me. I know when I'm going to be walking back through the door. At the moment, it is roughly between 5:50 and 5:55 a.m. And then I know when I start my day. And this, to me, that allows me, I don't need to think about it. I don't need to focus on it because it just fucking happens. And I have already started the day with 6 to 10 wins before my day has even truly begun. And that, to me, you just ride that momentum. You're like, fuck, well, I've already done all this shit this morning. I may as well keep that moving. It's consistent every single day. Even on the Saturdays where it's still a free day, I still make sure the first thing I get up, I take Sammy for a walk, I come home, and then I start my day. No matter what happens, every single morning, the non-negotiable for me is I get straight up, I have my coffee, I have my electrolytes, I take Sammy for a walk. Those 3 things every single morning do not change. Raining doesn't change. Hot doesn't change. Any of it does not change. Those are the first 3 things I do every single day. And that helps me to get my day off. That helps me to get my day started. And then that also allows me the freedom to focus on other aspects of things that are more important for later on in the day. I've spoken before about decision fatigue. Decision fatigue happens when you have to try and make too many decisions within a day. If you focus on 3 tasks instead of 10, you're very likely to get a much better result than you will by trying to focus on 10 and giving poor attention to all of them. Now, onto the actual aspect of habit stacking and identity-based habits. So anybody who's read Atomic Habits by James Clear, you will understand what habit stacking is. It is essentially using one habit to help leapfrog another habit. I will do X and then I will do. So what you're essentially doing is you're utilizing a habit that you're already doing. And then you try and tack on a new habit. So an example of this here can be, after I make my coffee, I will write my top 3 priorities for the day. So if you're already having a morning coffee, great. You do that every single morning, perfect. As soon as you have your morning coffee, write your top 3 habits for the day. Or in my case, for example, as soon as I make my bed, I go down, I make my coffee, I make my electrolytes, I go straight to the beach. I don't think about it. I don't even question it. I just do. If I was to try and stack a new habit somewhere in there, and this has actually been my problem in the past, previously I still track blood pressure, but I don't need to track it as frequently anymore, given the fact that I'm quite a lot lighter with no subs, basically. I would have to track my blood pressure 3 times a week. Now, what I found was I had a huge amount of resistance to doing this, not because I hated tracking my blood pressure, but because it threw out my routine. 3 mornings a week, I would have to come downstairs, and instead of making my coffee and making my electrolytes, the first thing that I would do is I'd have to take my blood pressure. Now I had to sit there for about 10 minutes, and that actually started to throw out my whole day because it was now throwing out my routine. And there was a few times where I'd come downstairs and I was a little bit more tired, or I wasn't thinking straight or whatever. And because I'd been so routine biased and just so structured, I forgot to do it, and I would just get straight into my day. And then by the time I remembered, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm already at the beach. I've had coffee. It's not going to be a realistic result. So I wouldn't do it. And that to me, I was like, okay, well, I don't have a resistance to actually taking my blood pressure, but I did have a resistance to training my morning routine. So then I just had to figure out a way to actually make that work within my day, which I did. And I was able to do it every single day from there, and it was fine. But it's one of those things that, like, there's a few other examples. After I finish journaling, you can plan your day out. After gym, 5 minute of breath work or gratitude reflection. After you've walked the dog, you can listen to a podcast or audiobook, or while you're walking the dog, you can listen to a podcast or audiobook. If listening to podcasts or audiobooks or whatever the case might be is something that is of interest to you. For me at the moment, I fell out of the habit of reading before bed, because every single night before bed, Jess and myself will FaceTime, because that's generally the only time that we can both have available where we can just sit and chat and just discuss how our days have been and everything like that. Now that to me is a non-negotiable. Every single day we get on FaceTime and we talk. If it's half an hour, if it's an hour, if it's fucking 20 minutes sometimes, because that's all we have with our days, it doesn't matter. That is a non-negotiable. However, what that has actually meant is that I sometimes don't read as much of a nighttime. I love reading, and I find it very therapeutic. I find it incredible for my brain to be able to switch off and just, dependent upon what I'm reading at that point in time, just do something different. So to me, reading became something I wanted to reintegrate. Now, I've added it to my daily tasks every single day at the moment to read 10 pages. And what I'm essentially doing is I can get 10 pages done in 15 minutes. So I am setting aside a 15-minute window where I set a timer, and I'll go and do it. Now, I've generally been doing this after the afternoon walk with Sammy. We come back. Before I get back into my work, I'll read for 15 minutes, get my 10 pages done, and then I'll jump back in and do my work. That's been really helpful to me. Other people might be a little bit different, but it's just about finding the ways it's going to work for you. It might not always be super orthodox. It might be a little bit weird to some people when you start to try and integrate new habits or whatever the case might be. But it's just something that we need to actually be able to do so that we can actually change our habits and our consistency long term. Now, when we discuss identity-based habits, these are something that people will set, and they're like, okay, well, I have a goal of running a marathon, but they're not even running. Like they want to do one of those like couch to 5K sort of programs. And it's like, well, instead of setting the goal and identifying, I want to run a marathon, why don't you just set yourself the goal or the habit of, I want to be someone who runs? Taking yourself from somebody who sits on the couch and hasn't ran in 20 or 30 years to running a marathon is a pretty fucking arduous task. And it is something that is probably going to set yourself up for failure, because you'll be like, holy fuck, this is a big goal, I can't do it. Instead of that, change it from, I want to run a marathon, to, I just want to be somebody who runs consistently. I want to do X. Instead of going, oh, I'm going to go and train 5 days a week and compete in powerlifting, it's like, I want to be somebody who trains. Start smaller, build on these habits. Create the routine, create the consistency. You're not going to be a world champion runner if you don't fucking run. But you can potentially become a world champion runner if you start to run slowly. 1K, 2K, 3K, whatever the fuck it might be. You get the point. It's trying to create these habits and the routine and the structure and everything like that to actually then allow yourself to create further habits long term. And you can then utilize, it's like, okay, cool. I'm someone who doesn't run at the moment. I am somebody who wants to become a runner. I will start with 1 run per week. I will then take that 1 run and I will make it 2. Cool. Now I'm running twice a week for 2 to 3Ks. I'm going to increase those distances. Once I reach 5Ks across both days, I will then add a 3rd, or I will do this or that, or whatever the case might be. And now all of a sudden, you've taken yourself from not running at all to running 5Ks 3 times a week. And you're like, okay, cool. Now we can start to build on this. Now I can start to add in other things. It's like, all right, well, I'm running a little bit more. This is going to beat up my body. Well, what's the best way to continue to be able to run? Well, I should probably start stretching or doing some form of mobility or some strength work to be able to help that. All right, cool. Well, I'm not currently training. So what I will do is I will go and train 2 times per week full body sessions. I will have 15 minutes of stretching or mobility at the start. I will train for 45 minutes. That's an hour twice a week. It's only 2 hours over the course of a week. That's going to allow me to continue to run. And then that's also going to allow me to keep my body feeling good, basically. Straight away, you've gone from doing nothing to running and going to the gym and keeping your body in check. Those are some huge fucking wins and some massive, massive habits that are being created. All of a sudden, you've proved to yourself, hey, I can actually do this. This is good. This is easy. You become a little bit more disciplined. With the discipline builds confidence. With that confidence gives motivation. You're like, fuck, I've already proven to myself that I can do this. Absolutely, I'm going to go and increase the distance, or absolutely, I'm going to go and sign up for that 10K or the half marathon or whatever the case might be, because now you've proven to yourself that you can actually do the fucking hard thing and stack some wins and generate the habits. So yeah, it's, as I said, like the biggest tip or trick I can give to anyone for building consistency is just start small, one habit at a time. These small wins compound. As I mentioned to you at the very start, me making my bed every day, it's not a big thing. It's probably something that most people are like, yeah, I do that too. And you might not even think about it, but I don't place much weight on it, but I understand that every single morning, the first thing I'm going to do to start my day is essentially making my bed. That then allows me to carry it through into other things. And then all of a sudden it just becomes so routine and habit-based that it's not even something I think about anymore. It's just the first thing I do is I wake up, do the bed. But yeah, so making good habits easy and bad habits hard is a base around your environment, like anchoring your environment. We already know that if you're on a weight loss journey and you're surrounded by people who don't give a fuck about losing weight and all they'd want to do is eat shit and go out and not train and not do this and not do that, you're probably going to have a really hard time. Whereas if you're in a really supportive environment and you have people around you who are like, hell yeah, I love that. You know, I still want you to come out and hang out with us, but I understand you're on a diet or you're doing this or you're doing that. That supportive environment is going to help. When you have a negative environment, it's probably going to take away. So setting these habits based around your environment is also incredibly crucial, I should say. And it will allow you to then actually be able to stick to them more realistically. Now, you can track progress visually. You can use streaks, checklists, etc. As I said, dopamine. Dopamine loves it. Dopamine loves progress. Yeah, you want to get a little hit of dopamine, write down a list of tasks, tick them, or put a line through them. Your body loves it. Your brain loves it. It's like, fuck yeah, how can I get another little hit of that? And when they're really positive things, it's even better. Like it's just great. And once you do that for a consistent amount of time, they say it takes about 21 days to make or break a habit or create a new behavior or whatever the case might be. Once you do that, you'd be surprised what other things you can compound, as well as accountability. So telling someone your goal or document it. A good way to do it is content creation, if you're that way inclined. A good way is to tell some friends, is to have an accountability buddy. It's to talk to someone and be like, hey, I'm going to do X. Would you mind checking in on me? I want to change this. Would you mind helping me with that? And just remember that if somebody does call you out on it and say, hey, weren't you doing this goal or weren't you trying to set this habit? That's someone who actually cares. That's someone who gives a fuck. Someone who holds you accountable to the things you're going to say actually gives a fuck about you. Do not get angry at them. Do not turn around. And I know this can be hard when you know that you should be doing something and you're not, and someone calls you out on it and you get a little bit fucking defensive and angry and you bite their head off. And then you're like, hang on a second. I asked this person to help me. They are just doing that. Now, there's obviously ways in which this can be done differently. If that person's coming across condescending or whatever the case might be, that is fine. But for the most part, if you have said to somebody, hey, I want to do X, and they keep you accountable to doing X, don't fucking bite their head off when they pull you into line and tell you that you're fucking up. That's someone who cares about you. You need more people like that in your life. I can tell you right now, that will get you to your goals 1,000 times faster. And then just reflecting weekly, honestly, adjusting what's working versus what's not. As I said to you, I sit down on a Sunday every single Sunday. I will plan my week ahead. I will structure out what content I need to make or what days I'm posting it. I will structure out who needs client updates for programming. I'll go through messages and just double check to see if there's anything important coming up that I need to know for that week ahead. I will ensure everybody's booked their calls, who need to book calls. I already know who's doing their check-ins on what day because I have it written down on a sheet because there's no guessing around here. I just know the thing. And I'll make sure that my week works around it. And then if there's anything that I need to add in around, it's like, cool, I know exactly what I'm doing at each time. It's like, this is the time that I have allotted for spare, or this is the time that I have allotted for this. So then I can fit something else in that I need to do. It just makes it easier. You don't even need a second guess. You're just doing the fucking thing. And then I will do the same thing every single morning. Every single morning, I will wake up. And well, we already know that I wake up because fucking someone has to. And I'll write out my daily list. I'll go through the actual structure of that in a moment for you just to see if it might help. But before we get into that, a couple of the most common pitfalls or the ways in which I see people fall through the cracks when it comes to this is an all or nothing mindset approach. When it comes to all or nothing, people fuck up really quickly and they're like, well, if I'm not 100% in, then I'm out. And that mindset is what's keeping you stuck. That is actually what is showing you that you can't do the thing because you're basing everything off of one day. The old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, rings true. One bad meal doesn't throw out an entire diet. One missed session doesn't mean you completely fucked up your entire training program. Missing one day's tasks or missing just one activity for that day doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you probably need to be better prepared for tomorrow. Now, full transparency, today's Wednesday, the 22nd of October. Yesterday, the 21st of October, is the first day in 6 weeks that I have missed one of the tasks on my list. Now, I got to the end of the day. Sorry, that's a lie. Monday was the first day, so the 20th. Monday was the first day in 6 weeks that I missed something off of my list. Now, I did not beat myself up about it. I did not get angry. I did not go, oh, well, what's the fucking point? Because I missed one fucking activity or task in 6 weeks. One, it did not matter. All I said to myself is, okay, I will not let that happen again. And the next day, yesterday, I ticked off every single task. It did mean, however, I was walking from my bedroom to the hallway to get an extra 1,200 steps because I need to get 12,000 steps a day at the moment. And despite the fact that I hadn't worn my watch for an hour yesterday while I was doing something else, my watch didn't tick over to 12,000 and I needed to see it tick over to 12,000. Is it neurotic? Potentially. Is it unhealthy? No, because that to me means more to stick to what I say I'm going to do than anything else. If I'd just gone, oh, well, I might be at 12,000, that's allowing just that voice to creep in and be like, oh, you could just not go to the gym today. Oh, no, you could just not do that. Or, oh, what's it going to matter if we miss one day? If you allow yourself to do that with one thing, as I said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If it starts to creep in, you're going to continue to allow it to creep in. And that is when you will fall apart. And that is when not bad things, but shit will go haywire. Overloading and trying to do too many things at once is definitely also another way to guarantee that you're going to fuck it up. I mentioned at the start about decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is a real thing. If you're trying to change 10 different habits at once, if you're somebody who sits on the couch, doesn't eat healthy, doesn't train, doesn't do anything, and you go, okay, cool, well, now I'm going to start getting 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to track all of my food. I'm going to be eating X amount of calories. I'm going to train 5 times per week. I'm going to run 3 times per week. I'm going to read 10 pages a day. I'm going to do this and that. And you have 10 things on your list. You're going to look at that list and go, fuck that. I'm never doing any of those things. Start with one thing at a time. Turn that habit into another or 3. Now, I very first learned about all of this stuff years and years and years ago from a guy named Andy Frisella, who hosts or used to host the MFCEO project. I think it's called something different now. But basically, he had what was called the power list. Now, that was 3 critical tasks every single day that you did that was going to change a habit or build a new routine. He selected 3, and he said that 3 is the magic number to allow yourself to be able to actually spread your focus across those 3 different tasks and build habits and consistency. He said, if you do those 3 things for 7 days a week, 21 days, so 3 weeks straight, that is now a habit, and you do not need to continue to write it down. You can further add either other habits, or you can further add on to that particular habit. So you might, for 3 weeks, just go, okay, well, I'm not going to eat takeout. Great. Instead of going, oh, I'm going to track everything meticulously and I'm going to eat X amount of veg and this and that, it's like, cool, I'm not going to eat takeout for 3 weeks. You've done that. Now it's like, all right, cool. Now I'm going to aim to hit X amount of protein or these calories or whatever the case might be. And you can slowly but surely implement new strategies, new habits, new routine, new structure that allow you to get through your day. I started with that. I bought the Power List book. I wrote it out every single day. And I did my best to try and win every single day to get that little dopamine hit. Now, I did not win every single day. There were sometimes I lost, and that was fine because I continued on. And at the end of the day, consistency is better than nothing. So if I had at least won 85 to 90% of the time, it's better than not winning any of the time because I hadn't bothered to even fucking start. Starting will always get you further ahead than thinking about starting. Just remember that. And then the other thing too is focusing only on outcomes instead of systems. So if you only ever focus on the outcome, i.e. if you only ever focus on the reward and not the system that you are building, you are missing the whole point. If you only focus on, well, I want to be 85 kilos and I'm going to, and that's it, like, and you don't focus on actually how you've built the system. So whether that's by tracking food, whether that's by training regularly, whether that's by getting enough steps every day or doing cardio, whatever the case might be. If you only go, I'm going to be 85 kilos no matter what, no matter how I get there, and then you get there and you're like, okay, cool. But now all of a sudden you've got no real structure about how you've actually done any aspects of it, you're going to probably be a little bit lost, and it's going to be hard to replicate to then do other things in the future. Now, my personal framework every day, as I said, I was going to run you through a little bit about how I structure my day. And I've already given a pretty good insight because I do the same shit every day. Like, I'm a very routine-based person. If you haven't been able to figure that out by now, if you've probably not been listening effectively, it helps me. It may not help everybody else, but I can guarantee you there's not been a single person I've ever met or spoken to or worked with or anything that hasn't gotten benefit from creating routines, habits, and consistency out of what they're trying to do every single day. As I mentioned, every single morning, first things first, toilet, make bed, downstairs, coffee, electrolytes, straight to the beach to walk Sammy, getting my body moving, watching the sunrise, getting some fresh air, quick 3 to 4 Ks of walking, get straight home. First thing I do, make my breakfast, get all my subs ready for the morning so that I'm ready to take them when I have my smoothie, come straight upstairs, sit down, write out my daily task, or actually come straight upstairs, brush my teeth, come in, write out my daily intention, my 3 points of gratitude for the morning, and then I write out my daily wins, all my tasks that I need to get done for that day to ensure that I know exactly what I'm doing. Now I compare this to my lists of tasks that I have to get done over the course of the week. I compare this to my schedule for that day based upon my calendar, and I ensure that everything is aligned. I'm not setting myself tasks that are going to be impossible. If I know for a fact I've got a bunch of calls on that day and all the rest of it, I'm not going to sit there and go, well, I'm also going to film this and I'm going to record this and I'm going to do X and I'm going to go train legs and all of these other things. Sometimes that might happen, but for the most part, if I can try and keep it as succinct as possible to actually give myself the best chance to succeed, then that is what I will do. I then normally will have lunch around the same time every day, or most of the time when I'm training, I'll go around mid-morning. So I will normally work somewhere between 6 to 6:30 a.m. until about 10. I'll then eat and go train, or I will have a little break for a little bit, and then I'll go walk Sammy, and then I'll come back in and get back into work for the afternoon. 9 times out of 10, I have ticked off the majority of my critical tasks by 12 p.m. They're done for the day. The only ones that aren't realistically is like my steps, which I get done over the course of the day. And then the other one for me at the moment is sticking to calories and reading my 10 pages, which I generally will do in the afternoon. So I don't tick them off until they are done. And then at the end of the night, before I go to bed, the first thing I do is Go through my list. I'm like, cool. Did I win? Perfect. I already know that I have for the most part, so I don't even need to check it. But these are the things that help me. It is a personal experience, obviously. You may not have the same routine. You may not have the same goals, outcomes, etc. You definitely probably won't. So find something that works for you. But the biggest thing is fucking sticking to it. Stick to what you say you're going to do. There is nothing worse than if you say you're going to do something and then you don't, because you're not going to believe yourself. If you start to doubt yourself, why the fuck is anyone else going to believe in you? If you're constantly sitting there and you betray yourself in terms of what you say you're going to do, if you've had an accountability buddy and that person constantly just sees you fucking throw in the towel or give up or not do the hard thing, they're not going to want to fucking keep you accountable, or they're going to become negative and be like, oh yeah, here we go again. You're just going to do the same shit over and over. And then you're going to turn around and be bitter and be like, oh, well, fuck you. You don't believe in me. It's like, no, they don't believe in you. They don't believe in you. Why the fuck should they have belief in you? You don't even have belief in yourself. You want to build some belief in yourself? Do the fucking thing you said you're going to do. It's as simple as that. That is as simple as I can make it. There's one thing I have learned in my nearly 8 years as a coach. It is the people who achieve the results they want do the thing they say they're going to do. They're not creating excuses. They're not letting external factors throw off their whole fucking week. They control the controllables and they do the fucking thing. Don't come to me and be like, oh, I haven't lost weight, but you're eating out every fucking day. You're barely hitting your steps and you're not training regularly. Because I'll just sit there and go, of course you haven't. You're not doing the thing you said you're going to do. Grow up, take some accountability, and do the fucking work. That's it. That's as simple as I can make it. The life I have built myself, with the ability to go to the beach twice a day, most days, with the ability to work when I want to work, with the ability to travel anywhere in the world and continue to work without any interruption, has been created by habits, routine, and consistency. I can promise you right now that if you start to implement these things long term, your life will be vastly different. You will benefit greatly. Those around you will benefit greatly, and your life will fucking flourish. That's it. If you can win your morning, you can win your day. If you can win your day, you can win your life. Done. Change it. Stick to what you say you're going to do. And that's it. If you took value from this podcast, if you have any questions, if you'd like a little bit more insight into maybe the way in which I structure my days, or a bit of a framework to help yourself follow, I do actually offer audits and things like that. It's one of the services I work with is mentoring and helping coaches to set up their structures, their lives basically around their work to get the most out of themselves, to get the most out of it. I help simplify it. The people that I've worked with so far, that I've been doing it with, have fucking seen a massive amount of benefit from it. So do not hesitate to reach out. Send me a message, ask me a question. If you took value from this, share it. If you have a friend who you think might benefit from it, share it with them too. I appreciate every single one of you who listens, taking the time out of your day. Thank you very much. Have a fucking fantastic day, and I'll speak to you on the next one.